This is Optimal Startup Daily, episode 500, The 10 Worst Things You Can Do in a Negotiation, Part 1 by James Altucher of jamesaltucher.com. And I am Dan, I'm your host, and welcome to the 500th episode of Optimal Startup Daily. If you are a veteran listener, you know that we are here every single day reading articles to you, usually one a day, but today's post is a little bit longer than normal. So what I'm going to do is I'll read the first half for you right now and then finish up the rest tomorrow. So for now, as we celebrate reaching this 500th episode milestone, let's get right to part 1 from James as we start optimizing your life. The 10 Worst Things You Can Do in a Negotiation, Part 1 by James Altucher of jamesaltucher.com. The best negotiator I knew always acted like an idiot. He acted so well that I thought he was really stupid. I also thought at the time that he was my best friend. That was probably an act also. Just 2 years later, he stopped talking to me forever. I ran into him in the street the other day, and he smiled and shook my hand. I felt warm, like he liked me again. Then he was gone. Negotiation is first about warmth. Two sides deciding if they want to be friends with each other, if they want to be in the same tribe, fighting side by side in this harsh world. After that, it's about vulnerability, making yourself into the type of person someone else wants to take care of. This is not a mystery. When a baby is born, the negotiation begins. It lasts until at least the baby is an adult. My oldest turns 16 tomorrow. She negotiates with me every day. I love her, but maybe that's what makes her such a tough negotiator. I'm not so good at realizing where all the boundaries are, between the outer me and the inner me, between the me that always loves her and the me that wants her to love me back. I guess that's how I am with everyone. If they don't love me back, I'm afraid I'll be less happy. If I'm honest where the boundaries are, then we can begin to set up the rules. Then love begins. Tricky. I've probably seen over 1,000 negotiations in action. I've probably been directly involved in 100 or so. Everyday life is a negotiation. I'm not talking in this post about the everyday negotiations, although the same rules apply. I'm talking about negotiations where careers and money and reputations and maybe love is at stake. For me, that latter one is the hardest, so take my advice with a grain of salt. In fact, I'd rather tell you all the ways in which I've messed up in negotiations because this is really the classroom I learned in. A. If you have a small list of terms, you'll lose. Let's say you're selling a company. One side is usually focused on the final price. That side will henceforth be called the loser. Make your list bigger. What are the terms of the non-compete? What is the length of the earnout? What are the salaries of the new top executives? What are the perks? What are the options packages? Or if it's a job, what are the responsibilities? What are similar people being paid? What is the path to higher promotions? What are the details of health, vacation, moving expenses, reviews, etc.? The side with the bigger list can give up the nickels for the dimes to the loser. B. If you don't get enough sleep, your willpower will be zero. Carl Icahn, one of the best investors in the world, uses this technique. He schedules his negotiations for the early evening. Our peak mental ability, according to Dan Ariely, author of Predictably Irrational and many other books, is approximately 2 hours after we wake up until about 4 hours after we wake up. And then, throughout the day, our willpower slowly leaks away until we sleep again. That's why we watch TV and eat donuts at night rather than when we first wake up. So Carl Icahn will sleep until 4 p.m. and then go to the negotiation at 6 p.m. On the other side of the table are exhausted lawyers who've been working all day. Bam! Who do you think will win that negotiation? C. Most people think short term. Be the visionary, and you win. Applied Semantics didn't want to sell to Google in 2001. They had raised some money and they thought they could make it. A few months earlier, I had made the mistake of turning them down when they were raising money. The search engine business is dead, said the greatest prophet of modern times, me. Larry Page told the CEO of Applied, I'm not getting off the phone until you say yes. So Applied Semantics sold themselves in exchange for 1% of Google. 1%. This was before Google went public, so it was a total unknown what those shares would be worth. Larry Page had the vision of where they would be. Applied Semantics became the AdSense division of Google, which now accounts for 99% of Google's revenues. Are they upset? Shouldn't they have sold for more? Of course not. They sold for over $1 billion in value and created the end goal of making one of the best companies in the world. You can only get rich once. Don't worry so much about maximizing your percentage of something. 1% of 250 billion is better than 100% of nothing, as the saying goes. I'm going to take a break for a second and say something that has saved me considerable stress. Never worry about what is in someone else's pocket. Let other people do well. Then you will do well. Okay, back to what you shouldn't do in a negotiation. D, don't say no. I say this even though I wrote the book, The Power of No. What I really mean here is bury your no inside of a yes. I was negotiating with one company once. They wanted me to be an advisor. I said no, but not like that. What I really said was, you have a great company and I'm happy to give advice. What a great way to say no. They kept calling. They really wanted me. I said, here's what you should do without me. And I totally laid out the plan they should do. I did it for free. That was another way of saying no. This made them want me as an advisor even more. Eventually, they offered enough that I said yes. They followed my advice exactly, the advice that I had already given for free. There's a well-known improv technique of saying yes and. In improv, the first performer creates the premise. The second performer can't change it or reject it. He can only build on it. In a negotiation, if someone says, well, you're only worth $1 because you have X, you can say, yes, and we also have Y, so let's take that into consideration. Suddenly, your value is higher because you didn't start a fight. You agreed and added. E. Hear that on tomorrow's episode. You just listened to part 1 of the post titled, The 10 Worst Things You Can Do in a Negotiation by James Altucher of JamesAltucher.com. Now, you've heard it on this podcast. You need the right team to make your business thrive. Indeed makes it easy to hire and build a team with the right skills to make your dreams a reality. Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. Find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. And Indeed is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. I love that Indeed makes hiring all in one place so easy, and Indeed saves you headaches. Interview virtually with no downloads, plugins, or purchases. You can do it all in one place with Indeed. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/startup. Offer valid through March 31st. Go to Indeed.com/startup to claim that $75 credit before March 31st. Again, that's Indeed.com/startup. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And thank you to James, who is an entrepreneur, a writer, investor, trader, and podcaster. And on his podcast, he's got interviews with a bunch of talented people like Nancy Cartwright, Sarah Blakely, Tony Robbins, Ariana Huffington, and many, many more. That podcast, if you'd like to check it out, is called The James Altucher Show, and it's always in the top charts in the business category over at Apple Podcasts for good reason. James has published 20 books as well and founded or co-founded over 20 companies. So come by JamesAltucher.com to learn and read more. He's always got a unique take on things. But that's going to do it for me today. Hope you enjoyed this 500th episode and that you're having a great day. And I'll be back here tomorrow where I'm going to finish up this post and where your optimal life awaits.